Thank God, today is another day that the Lord has given to us. Today, too, we are going to learn history, and the strand is historical inquiry and writing, and substrand nature and scope of history. As we've been doing every day, I'm sure everything is set so far as this lesson is concerned. I'm talking about the needed materials that you need to learn history today. I'm saying this thing because at the end of the lesson, you will be assessed to know whether indeed you will listen to the lesson because you answer some of the questions that I will be asking you at the end of the lesson. That is the assessment. So you pay attention and you listen to me as we proceed. In Unit 1, we have introduction and importance of studying history. And we are on lesson 7, which is key concepts in history. And under the key concepts in history, we have major periods in Ghanaian history and dating system. That is for SS1. That is what we are going to do today. So today's lesson is on the major periods in Ghanaian history and dating systems. In this lesson, we will learn how Ghanaians' past is divided into periods and how historians arrange events using dates. So by the end of the lesson, you also get to know how these are arranged chronologically, orderly, in order for you to get the meaningful and understanding of historical events. That is what we are going to look at today. So you get ready and be paying attention as we move on to discuss these major periods in history that we are talking of. And as we all know, every subject has or topic has get learning objectives, that is learning indicators. So here what we've stated is by the end of the lesson, learners or students will be able to 1. Identify the major periods in Ghanaian history. 2. Explain each period briefly. And 3. Describe dating system used in history. So what we mean here is simple. By the end of the lesson, you should be able to identify the major periods in Ghanaian history, explain them, and describe the dating system used by historians. That is where you have your evidence, you have your dates. You are going to identify the major period, the date that those things that we consider to be major period, what happened, what period. You are going to explain them, and then you also describe the dating system used by the historians in his write-up. So you pay much attention as we are going to discuss these major periods in Ghanaian history, how they occurred, why, and then the effects. Did we benefit from each of these or any of these periods? That is what we are going to look for as we proceed to the next. To the introduction, He said history becomes clearer when it is divided into periods and arranged using dating system. Ghanaian history is divided into periods for easy study. These periods show how society developed over time. Historians also use dating system to arrange events. Here we are talking about Ghanaian history specifically. And Ghanaian history is divided into periods to make the study of history easier. That is, if we are able to know the major period, the day that something occurred, why, and then the consequences, it makes the study of history easier. And here we said these periods help us understand how society changed over time. What happened to this society? What caused it? What are we experiencing what we are having now? What caused the change? And historians also use dating system to arrange historical events in order. That is why we've already said that knowing the dating system and then the major periods that those events occurred, you'll be able to arrange historical events in order so that it will get meaningful understand for ordinary people, even those who are not historians. When they get to read it, they will get the meaning and the understanding of each point that you state in your write-up. That is what we are going to do. So this is the introduction, and as we move on, we get to know deeper meaning of the major events, major period that occurred in Ghanaian history, and why did those major events occur, and why do we consider those events as major. That is why we are going to look at it one after the other. So let's look at major periods in Ghanaian history. As we've already said, Ghanaian history is commonly divided into three major periods. And the first one that we are looking at is pre-colonial period. That is the period before European ruled Ghana. And we said the pre-colonial period refers to the time before Europeans ruled Ghana. During this period, Africans governed themselves through traditional rulers, kingdoms, and chiefdoms such as Asante and Dagon. And the pre-colonial period, also known as the pre-colonization era, refers to the time before the advent of colonialism in Africa. In Ghana, this period was characterized by a rich and diverse history that spanned from the earliest times to the year 1874. It was in this year that the British declared the Gold Coast as a crown colony, marking the beginning of colonial rule in the region. This period also marked by significant cultural, social, and economic changes that shaped the course of Ghana's history and development, and it is a crucial period to study and understand for anyone interested in the country's past and present. So in short, this period was where Ghanaians had their own state, controlled their own affairs until the European came in. And say it started around 1874, where the British declared the Ghana as the crown colony. Then we move on to the colonial period. And when we talk of colonial period, we are talking about the period when Ghana was ruled by Britain. And this colonial period was the time when Ghana was ruled by Britain. This period lasted from 1874 to 1957. when Ghana was known as the Gold Coast. And here too is during this colonial period, which lasted for several decades, various European powers arrived on new shores and established their presence in different parts of the world. This era was marked by significant interaction between the colonizers and the indigenous inhabitants of these lands, that is, the indigenes of these lands, leading to establishment of new social, economic, and political systems, as well as the spread of European culture. The colonial period also saw the emergence of new trade routes. The exploitation of natural resources and the rise of global empires that will shape the world for countries to come. So, in short, when we talk of colonial period, we are talking about the period that we had encounter with the European in our society or on the soil of Africa here, and it started from 1874 to 1957, where we had our independence. Then we move on to post-colonial period. And post-colonial period, we are talking about the period after independence. The post-colonial period began after Ghana gained independence in 1957. During this period, Ghanaians governed themselves and worked towards national development. That is the pre-colonial period and post-independence period in Africa. It's an important era in the continent's history. It is a period that marks the end of colonialism and the emergence of independent states in Africa. This era saw the African continent regain political self-determination and sovereignty, with many African countries recovering their independence from their European colonial rulers in the 1950s and 1960s. The post-colonial period was also characterized by significant political, social, and economic changes, which were driven by the desire to establish new government system and address the challenges left by colonial rule. These challenges included political instability, economic underdevelopment, and social inequality. Social inequality. We are talking of social inequality. We now move on to dating systems in history. So here we are going to look at the meaning of dating system. Here what I've stated is dating system are methods used to arrange historical events in time. And dating system also help historians know when events happen. So in short, it's a dating system are methods used by historians to arrange historical events in time. They help us know when events happen. That is, if we are able to know the date that something happened and you are commenting on it, you have the power to comment on it and you give the accurate date to make the meaningful and understandable historical event or historical writings. That is what we mean by the date system in history. And if we are able to deal with the dating system here, then we will move on to major dating terminologies used in history. When you talk of major dating terminologies used in history, as we've already indicated, dating is very important in historical writings. We said dating systems in history are essential for organizing and making sense of past events. Historians use different methods to assign dates to events and periods in history, which allow them to create a coherent narrative of the past to better understand the significance of historical events over time. This system helps in understanding how societies evolve and how events unfolded in a particular time frame. So the major dating system in history used in history include BC, which is before Christ. BC means before Christ, and it refers to the period before the birth of Jesus Christ. And you also move on to AD, that is Anno Domini, which is in the year of the Lord. It also refers to the period after the birth of Jesus Christ. Then we move on to BCE and CE. That is BCE stands for before the Common Era and Common Era. CE, Common Era. These terms also correspond to BC and AD respectively. So it is similar to that of BC and AD as we've already indicated. And we have the Sika or C and Ka, C. That is, Sika is a Latin word that means approximately or around. Here we are not specifically giving you the exact date, but we talk about around that date, maybe around 400 BC, around 500 BC, around 20 this thing. That is what we mean by Sika. That you don't even know the exact date, but you use this one to make it closer to the date, around this date or that date. That is what we mean by the Sika or C or CA. Then we come to decade. A decade simple means a period of 10 years. And then we have century. A century refers to a period of 100 years. A period of 100 years. That is decade. And we talk of maybe the 1930s was a decade of economic depression in many parts of the world. This tells us something that happened around that time. So when we talk of decade, we simply talk of a period of 10 years. And then we come to century. A century also refers to a period of 100 years. A period of 100 years. And we have millennium, which is the period of 1,000 years. And the last one that I've listed here, age, era, and period. Age and eras usually do not have definite starting or ending point. That is, you talk about around this era, around this age. But period refers to a specific time frame. That is the period between maybe 10 and 20 years. Then you specifically state that. That is what we mean by the period. Now we move on to importance of dating system. And here one we've written, it helps historians to arrange events chronologically. Point 2, it makes comparison of event easier. Point 3, it helps understand cause and effects. And the last one, say it promotes accuracy in historical study. So in short, we say dating system helps historians arrange events in order, understand cause and effect, and compare historical developments. So we come to the conclusion of the whole show. And the conclusion, we have sum up, we have the summary. That is, Ghanaian history is divided into 3 major periods. Each period has unique characteristics. Dating system also help arrange historical events. So he said, dating system helps historians arrange events in order, understand cause and effect, and compare historical development. And here is say in summary, Ghanaian history is divided into three major periods, and dating system help historians organize events in time. But before we say goodbye to today's topic, we have to write short exercise to see whether you understood the lessons, whether if we can, whether we should proceed the next one, the continue or repeat the topic. So number one, we have described the three major periods in Ghanaian history, explain the difference between BC and AD, and state three importance of dating system. You see, put everything in the exercise. Well, that brings us to the end of the lesson, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully, you will make amends if you were based on the assessment, and if you have to repeat it, we will also do that. Hope you've enjoyed it, and see you next time. Thank you.